Parks, who is a Family and Consumer Sciences Family Resources Agent with UF IFAS Extension, and she's also the Duval County Program Coordinator for the Family Nutrition Program, and we're excited to hear her presentation about cottage food law. Natasha, we've had a lot of conversation and questions these last couple of days about cottage food law, so I know we're excited for your presentation. Welcome.
Excellent, and thank you so much for that warm welcome and that activity. That was awesome. So I'm sure that everyone can see my screen right now. Yes, thumbs up? Okay, excellent. As she stated, my name is Natasha Parks, and I'm in the Duval County IFAS Extension Office. Today, I'm going to present to you about the Homemade Entrepreneur Program, which is the cottage food business, as well as Delicia Strader. You're going to hear from her a little later. So let's go ahead and get started. So there's a link. Can everyone see that link? I'm going to try to put it in the chat box, and I want you to click on it.
I'll do that, Natasha. Oh,
can you see it? Mm-hmm. So go ahead and sign into that link. That's just kind of like a sign-in sheet if you don't mind. You can do that at your leisure, but I'll go ahead and continue. Today, we're going to talk about the cottage food law, some of the responsibilities of the cottage food operator, some of the labeling requirements, allowable and non-allowable foods, zoning, and some marketing tips. So a lot of people think about a food business and they think about like food trucks, hot dog stands, and restaurants. But a lot of times that is prepared in a commercial kitchen, not in the comfort of your home. As you can see in that picture, those two pictures, they differ. So in 2011, the House Bill 7209 was passed, and they stated that cottage food operations require no license or permit from the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Science Services. So cottage foods can be prepared at your home. Now, each state differs with this. One state might request for you to have your food made in a commercial kitchen. Another state might say, no, that's not the case. But a lot of times these foods are considered non-hazardous. They do not require time temperature for safety, and that'll make sense shortly. So before we really get into the meat and potatoes of this, if you can check, go to your chat box and indicate an example of a cottage food. Does anyone have an idea of what a cottage food is? You can go ahead and put that in the chat box. All right, so some people said bread, cake, jellies and jams, granola, baked bread and salsa, not the salsa, but jam, dried herbs. Okay, good, good. All right, let's learn a little bit more about that. So as you stated, jams, jellies, granola, these are some items that are considered cottage food. And under the cottage food law, you can earn up to $50,000 annually. In 2011, it was actually like $15,000. Now, there's some rules to this. You can only sell your product in certain areas. So you can use a website, but you can only advertise on the website. You can only offer for sale, and you can only accept payment on the website. You cannot deliver by mail order. When you're dealing with cottage food and you're trying to sell, it's like from person to person. Now, one good thing about this, you can also SNAP recipients. Do you all know what SNAP recipients are? Put in the chat box, yes or no. Yes, yes, okay, we're all familiar with SNAP recipients. So there's an EBT, an electronic benefit transfer reader. And as a cottage food operator, you can actually have that and receive SNAP payments. We can talk about that a little later if you have any questions about it. So you can sell your products at a farmer's market, a flea market, roadside stands. Now, if we're at a farmer's market, you know how you have your one booth, right? Well, only cottage food products can be on that booth. You couldn't have like facial scrubs and body scrubs on the same booth as you would as a cottage food operator. So a lot of times those other food items require some type of permit. And one thing you have to think about, the farmers markets, Each one is different, and some of them might require a food license. And some of them might not even accept cottage food operators. So those are things that you might want to think about before starting your cottage food operation. So this is a booth at a food expo. I went here in New Jersey with one of our participants, and kind of based on everything that I've already told you, do you think that you can sell a cottage food product at a food expo? Go ahead and indicate that in the chat box. Okay, some people say yes. Probably about 4 said yes, maybe 1 no. Okay. So yes, you can sell your cottage food product at an event like a food expo. So in Jacksonville, we have like the Southern Women's Show. That's an event where you can sell your product, but it would have to be you as the cottage food operator selling directly to the person, right? So this was interesting in New Jersey. Remember when I told you earlier that the laws differ state to state? So in New Jersey, they actually require you to have made your product in a commercial kitchen, which is kind of different than what the cottage food law is about, right? So definitely check state to state that they differ. So this is Charlene Smith. She was a participant of our homemade entrepreneur class, and I'll tell you more about that later. And this is her cottage food product while she was in New Jersey. Now, as you see, she has her banners and everything. She is considered the cottage food operator. And this is at a food expo where she's selling her product. Now, since then, she has graduated from the program, and now she's moved towards commercial products. So here she is selling her product at a boutique. Now, if you are falling under the cottage food law, you cannot sell your item at a boutique, right? I already said earlier that you have to sell it at an event, or you make the product in your home and people can come to your home and purchase that product. Does that make sense? Thumbs up, everyone? All right. So now I have a couple of questions to ask you about this picture. This is also at the expo in New Jersey. And this group, Be Real, they're wonderful family. They have raw cookie dough. So put in the chat box if you think raw cookie dough is acceptable item for a cottage food product. So a lot of people are saying no. Okay. Now, what's interesting about this product, remember it's in New Jersey. They have to make their product in a commercial licensed kitchen. And what's interesting about this product, when she sent off her product, her recipe was so perfect in the sense that this is actually a shelf-stable item. This has no temperature control for safety. So it doesn't have to remain refrigerated. You can actually leave this on the shelf. I think she said for 3 months. I think it's available for 3 months as far as it being safe. And she said that you can actually bake this product. So I wouldn't try something like this in the cottage food, but I just wanted to let you know if you're starting under the cottage food business and you're moving on to commercialization, you might want to think about that you have to provide a sample of your product, and a lot of times it's determined shelf stable. So under the cottage food law in New Jersey, that's how they're operating, if that makes any sense. So one thing about the cottage food law, it's not for wholesale. Remember earlier, I said you can sell and directly deliver to the consumer or a consumer's private event. If you're at a wedding or a birthday party, which is considered an event, you as the cottage food operator can sell your product. Now let's talk about the products that you can sell. So on your left-hand side of the screen, everything in green is what you can produce. And the things on the right are the things that you cannot produce. So let's kind of go through the list on the left. So we mentioned earlier, some people said cakes and bread and granola, jams and jellies. A lot of people don't think that homemade pasta is an item that you can sell. So one thing about the Homemade Entrepreneur Program, we actually created this recipe for a shelf-stable homemade pasta. Now, when you make pasta at home, you have to let it dry out, et cetera, et cetera. but the product that we made had no eggs in it. And a lot of times when you make pasta, it has eggs in it. So we actually tested this recipe, and just to let you know, this is an item that you can sell. A lot of times we try to tell everyone that you can sell multiple cottage food products. Don't limit yourself to one thing. So say, for instance, you were growing herbs in the backyard and you wanted to put it in a can't say this word right, a sachet and dry them. You can sell that along with the homemade pasta. You can even have a note on there, say, to add olive oil and other ingredients to make this a meal. So just think about those different things if you're trying to sell your products. Now, what's majorly different between the left side and the right side is how you process these items. When you think of cottage foods, you think of shelf-stable items. Like on the right, someone mentioned salsa in the chat. And the reason why salsa would not be a cottage food is because it's really highly acidic. It has a different processing than the foods on the left-hand side. Barbecue sauces, ketchups, these are highly acidic. They have a different process to make. Canned fruits and vegetables, fish or shellfish products, raw seeds and sprouts, different processes. A lot of times these things have to be held under temperature control for safety. All right, let's keep moving. So we talked about the items that are allowed. Now, if you create these items, you also have to have a labeling requirement. So as you look on the screen, we have about 6 points that we have to identify. Now, when you create your label, it has to be on each cottage food product. It can't be on a sign on your table. It needs to be on each product because this is not regulated. So you have to indicate it's made in a cottage food operation. You have to indicate the name of the product, and you must have your name and address. As you note, it doesn't have a phone number, just your name and address. You're going to indicate your ingredients of the cottage food product in descending order of the predominance by weight. You also have to include the allergen information as well as the weight information. So one thing that we do in the program that we offer is we give incentives to the participants. So we give them a scale so they can measure their product. We give them like a display stand so they can promote their product. And we do different things to help them be successful in starting their business. Now, one thing you have to look out for in the cottage food business is those county and city restrictions. In Duval County, we definitely have a restriction. I haven't heard of a lot of other counties having restrictions, but Duval has this certificate of use. And any home-based business, you have to identify that it is a home-based business. Under the cottage food law, even though this might be different and this is a different zoning issue, you still have to complete this application. I don't know if you can really see the application very close, but there are 3 categories. There's a $112 fee, an $89 fee, and an exempt fee. So under just cottage food, if you live in Duval County, you just select the exempt fee, fill this out, send it off, and then that's it. You don't have to ask for permission or anything. This is just to state that you have a cottage food business. So if you're in a different county, you might want to consider what are the zoning regulations for that. So that's part 1 of the zoning requirement. And then they just have this disclosure statement that you have to sign. A lot of other areas don't have these issues, but again, just double check. So with all of that being said, we're going to turn it over to Delicia Strotter, and she's going to talk to you about the marketing plan.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Natasha said, my name is Delicia Strotter, and I'm the Family and Consumer Science Agent in Bradford County. And before we get started, I just want to ask you guys a couple of questions. For those of you guys interested in cottage food, how many of you have thought about or have created a business plan? And you can put that answer in the chat box. Okay. So I see a lot of no's. Before starting your business, or once you come up with an idea, it's very important to have a business plan, because your business plan is your business. your idea and your creativity, but in writing. Also included in that business plan, you want to make sure that you have a marketing plan, because the whole point of starting your cottage food business is to make sure that you're bringing in a profit. So you have to think about marketing. How do you plan on reaching your audience? Do you have a target audience? Do you have a budget? Which is something that we're going to actually get into. So your marketing plan, it helps. Creating a marketing plan will allow you to reach your marketing objectives. When creating a marketing plan, you want to think about your target audience, your competitors, product that you plan on selling, where do you plan on selling it, how do you plan on promoting your business and marketing it to the public. So for example, if you're going to use a farmer's market to sell your product, what is the fee to sell there? Next slide. So getting into who is your target audience. Does your product, I think the best way to say it is, what makes your product special? Is there a target audience that you can cater to or market more towards? So it could be your geographic area. I always give the example, if you're making something and you're in the beaches area, is it something that customers would like to use maybe while at the beach? If it is, maybe if it's a drink or if it's herbs or cookies, then when it comes to branding, that's what you want to make sure that you're displaying, because it makes them more willing to buy the product and more interesting. So if you're using cookies, making cookies, are you going to cater it towards adults? Are you going to cater it towards family? Are you going to cater it towards kids? Because then that makes a big difference with packaging and how you market that product. Is there a certain age, education, income? We don't think about that a lot of times. Beliefs, values, attributes, lifestyles, and culture. Lifestyles and culture are very big when it comes to marketing. So are you maybe using organic products? If you are, you want to make sure that your customers know that, right? Okay. So right here is a 2019 Culinary Forecast, and this is through the National Restaurant Association. You can go online and look it up. And I always say print it out because it gives you great tips on how you can maybe tweak the product that you already have. Or if you don't have an idea yet, you can always, it helps guide you in what is selling, what is marketable, and what people are buying. So in the top 10 trends for 2019, you have the cannabis CBD infused drinks, your cannabis CBD infused foods, your zero waste cooking, globally inspired breakfast dishes. Now with that, you have to make sure that it's under cottage food guidelines. So is there something that you could substitute to make it cottage food? Is it something that kids, maybe a kid's meal that can be added to a kid's meal, especially with a lot of kids staying at home right now? Is it hyper local? Are you using from your local farmers new cuts of meat, your veggies, chef-driven, fast casual concepts, and also your artisan produced spirits? I apologize. Now, I want to go back to 1 and 2. With the cannabis CBD infused drinks and foods, that's very tricky. This is a national guide. So in the state of Florida, it is illegal. And if you have any questions, I know sometimes people ask the questions about hemp and things like that, you need to contact FDACS, okay? Because they have their own rules and regulations when it comes to those things. So going back to attributes, what products do your target customers want? What attributes distinguish your products in the market? So product size, the color, and the appearance are very important. Is it something, or is it a product that consumers feel like with your business, they're getting more for their buck? Your packaging type, size, and labels. If it's catered towards kids, you might want to have something that's more colorful. If it's catered towards moms, you might want to have that on your labels or in your packaging to make it more appealing to them. Shelf life, taste and texture. We all know that that's very important. And nutrients, organic, is it GMO free? So in your marketing plan, how will you sell your products? When creating your marketing plan, make sure to incorporate how you will sell your products. And like I said, with that marketing plan and your business plan, it's a guide, not just for if you want to eventually get investors, but also for yourself, because a lot of times we get caught up in, oh, I want to add this and I want to add that, and we're putting out more money than we're bringing in. And that's how a lot of businesses go bankrupt and they have to close down. Are you going to use social media? I tell all of my business owners, social media is key, especially in times like this. You can reach everyone. Either they have a Facebook or Instagram, especially Instagram, because you use those hashtags to your advantage. If you're selling cookies or chocolate chip cookies, when you put that picture up, you put a brief description on there, how they can locate you, or if you're going to use a website, put all of the detailed information. But also, a lot of people don't realize that those hashtags create more of a audience. Let's say that. If you're selling cookies, hashtag your area, hashtag cottage food. Because if someone searches cottage food in Instagram, your pictures are going to pop up. So then you're able to get more customers. Facebook. Is there a way with your customers that you might have now? Could you give them some form of an incentive? Like, hey, if you post my pictures or a picture of you eating my cookies and you post it 5 times out of the week, we'll use as an example, I might give you 10% off your next purchase. Give them some form of incentive. Did we have any questions? Okay. And then also in your marketing plan, are you going to use farmers markets? If you're going to do that, that allows for a more personable experience. You can talk one-on-one with your customers and build a relationship with them. And when you're building that relationship, use the same methods of an incentive. Like, hey, if you refer 5 people to me, you can even do like the customer little coupon cards. Every time you come to me, I'll mark off or I'll initial on that customer card, and you bring it back after 5 times, and maybe you get a free cookie. That is going to make people want to come to your business. So right here is another picture of a lentil house, which Tasha talked about earlier. If you're going to go to a farmer's market, you want to make sure that your display is appealing to others. So if you're catering towards children, you need to have it colorful on your table. You don't want something that is just plain and people are just going to walk by. If you're at a farmer's market, your competitors are out there. So what will make your table stand out? Yes, your food might taste different, it might be better, but the consumer will not know that. You need to bring them to your table. How do you draw them there? If it's kids, you have colors. I always give the example as well of Walmart. You remember Walmart back in the day, they had that big smiley face and it was yellow and it was just so bright when you walked in there. That was a marketing strategy. Or when you walk into Walmart and it's always that big case of like balls and toys, because what are kids going to do? They're going to run right there and they're going to pick up everything, right? And as parents, we're more likely to buy it because they're going to keep asking for it. So make your table appealing to your audience and cater towards them. Tasha, do you want to give a little example of how you ended up helping Lentil House with this?
Yes, this was interesting. So this particular person went to New Jersey to sell her product at this expo. And you can imagine, of course, she had to fly there. She had these large suitcases, about 2 of them. And she packed as much as she can. She actually sold out on the first day. But the problem was when we got there and she started setting up, I was like, oh, you need more. This is not engaging. She had our banner, but she didn't have a sign. She didn't have a pricing list. Of course, she had those bags. So a lot of that stuff on the table, we had to go buy right then. Because when you're inviting someone to your cottage food operation and you're getting ready to sell this product, like Delicia said, you want to make it welcoming. So you have to think about height differences of how you present the product. Now, she didn't have a lot of money. We had to do what we could. One of those items on there is actually a hat box. So we turned the hat box over, put things on top, and used the lid of the hat box for something else. So just making sure that it's inviting, because these are fried lentils. People are not concerned about fried lentils. It's only a certain audience that's concerned about fried lentils. So she did provide samples, and people started being curious. She sold out the first day, lines were out the door. One thing I would say is when you go to these type of events, it was just she and I. You really need about 3 people. We had a line of people wanting to sample every single one of her different flavors, which was great. But I had to do the money for her, and she did the money, and then I was engaging with the customers. So you kind of have to think about all this. You know, I already talked about the different types of food that is allowed, but it's more than just making a product and selling it. It's how you sell it. I'll turn it back over to you, Delicia.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we're going to get into our next slide. This right here is a list if you are going to go to a farmer's market. Now, you know, in the beginning, I said having that business plan is important because also in that business plan is your financial plan. What do you plan on spending money on? So you see this list, and it's a long list. And even when you think about the previous picture with Lentil House, you've seen that she had a tablecloth. She had to have labels created. She needed displays. All of that needs to go into your business plan or your marketing plan. You can create a simplified business plan, but if you're already established, the most important thing is that marketing plan, because that is how you generate your money. So this right here is the list. You're going to need tables, chairs, a tablecloth, because what if you go to that farmer's market and they don't have it? Not all of them do. And before you go to that farmer's market, those are some of the questions that you want to ask. Are tables and chairs supplied? And even if they are, you might want to bring your own because you might not like what they have. Your display gear, do you need cake stands, baskets, risers, pricing cards? If you're helping someone else, it's always better to have a price list up. So then once that person picks what they want, they already know how much it is. So all they have to do is come to you and cash out. A money belt or a change drawer. Sometimes the money belt might be a little bit easier, especially if it's heavy traffic, because then if you have cash, you can just take the cash, give them their change, and keep it moving. You never want to have the customer sitting there waiting. The longer they wait, the less likely they are to purchase. How many times have you went to Walmart and you see that long line and you just kind of say, you know what, is it worth it? Normally, if it's something that you don't need, you'll put it back and just say, I'll come back later, or I'll find a substitute for it. Never have your customers waiting. A credit card processing form or device is easy to get those little squares, or are you gonna do Cash App, Zelle? You need to figure that out, because the worst thing that you can do is going out and selling your product and not being prepared. Consumers remember that. They remember, especially if they like to go to that farmer's market, oh, I remember that table, but it's unorganized, or she takes too long. You never want to do that. All right, make sure that you have signage so people know your business name. It's all about branding. When you do social media, make sure that you have your logo up. You're always hashtagging. That's another thing too. Hashtag your business. Have your consumers hashtag your business. You're creating a brand for your company. Business cards. On your business cards, you make sure you have your name, your contact information, also social media. It's a lot of times I see business cards in their business website and their social media is not on there. So if you don't go to that farmer's market that week, but someone wants to purchase something, you're losing money, right? Masking or duct tape, very important to have with you. You never know if that wind comes and everything gets to flying off the table. I've experienced that myself and it's horrible. A permanent marker and bags for the customers. On your bags, if you can, put your logo on your bag with your social media on there. Because then when someone sees it, they're like, oh, where did you go? Here you go. Branding. Branding is the most important thing that you can do when it comes to marketing.
So we know that this might not be for everyone. Some people come into, they want to know about the cottage food, but they only want to sell it out of their home. Some people want to go to different farmers markets. Some people want to go to different events. So you have to determine what works for you. Our goal today was really just to give you an overview of the cottage food law, as well as give you some things you need to think about as it relates to marketing, because the goal is we want you to be successful with your business. You know, a lot of restaurants fail. A lot of food business fail because they don't put in all the work. So even though we told you about the cottage food, there might be some questions you might have that we didn't cover because we just wanted to give you an overview. But actually tomorrow we're going to have another webinar, and this webinar is for an hour. And we really give you everything you need to do to start your food-based business. We actually have sessions like 3 consecutive weeks from 10 to 2:30. We provide a class because a lot of people want to start a business, but they don't know how to run a business. So how are you going to be successful if you don't know how to run your business? So what I want to do is go ahead and open the floor to questions that you have as it relates to the cottage food law. Because a lot of times, even though I cover the material, and it doesn't take long to cover the material, people have direct questions, and there are some gray areas that are hard to answer. So I'll go ahead and open the floor to questions. If you want to go ahead and put that in the chat box, we can take those one by one because we still have about 10 minutes, right, Rachel? Okay.
That's correct.
So do we have any questions? All right, let's see. So can one individual have 2 completely separate cottage food businesses? No. So the one thing about the cottage food law, it's within your domain. It's where you reside. So the only person who can operate that business are the individuals in that house, which means you can't use commercial equipment. You can only use regular kitchen equipment that you would have in your home. And where you make the product is a typical kitchen and not an out kitchen, like something detached from your house. So you can only have 1 cottage food business per house. Now you might say, well, I have 2 homes in the same county. That might differ, but I know you don't reside in both homes at the same time because you can't occupy 2 places. So the best way I can answer that question is no. Does that work for you, Larry? Okay. So Kim has a question. Once you sell online and ship, who is the responsible agency? So you can take payment online, but you can't ship the item, because one thing about the cottage food is so direct one-to-one person. So it's a one-to-one exchange. I make the product, I sell it to you, you give me the money. So I can't ship it online. I hope that makes sense. Thanks, Larry, for replying. So Kim, does that answer your question, or do you want me to expound on that a little bit more?
Hey, I understand that you can't. I'm just curious, once you do, who do you have to go to like, what's your next step at that point? Like, what agency regulates you?
Well, there's no regulatory agency under the cottage food law. If you're
I
making a,
understand, but this comes, I'm now stepping away from cottage food because
oh,
I sell online and ship. So I'm just curious, when you leave that line, and everything else about what I do meets cottage food except that. So who do I go to now?
well, you would have to get a food permit and register your business as a commercial business for food.
Okay,
And there are
so
a
the
lot of different other,
food,
say that again, Kim?
food permit is probably the words I'm looking for.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, do we have any other questions? Okay, so do we have any questions as it relates to the marketing plan? Oh, here's one that just popped in. So cottage foods are separate from other cottage industries like soap. Yes, exactly. So even though some of your soaps and your scrubs are made with food products, that is separate from your cottage food. It only relates to those items on that list. Does that answer your question, Anne? Okay, and you cannot sell the two items at the same booth, correct? Two separate booths. You're welcome, Anne. Do we have any other questions? All right, cottage foods can be resold. A CSA or retail store can sell your products. No, it can't. So remember, the cottage food operator would be you, Larry, and you can sell your products to consumers, but you cannot sell your products at a store. Once you start selling products at a store, you need a food permit. There are different regulations. Your cottage food industry does not have regulations, but it has to only be those items that are approved. So a CSA, no. Well, you can probably partner with a farmer because they might have a farm stand with the CSA, but we can talk a little bit about that later. My email is on that flyer at nparks@ufl.edu. I can send that and we can have a longer discussion about that. So our next question is, who regulates the sales of soaps? I'm sorry, the feed is just backing up. Hold on. Who regulates sales of homemade soaps? You can contact FDACS for that. They can give you that information. We actually had a call about that last week. And if you contact them, they can give you more information about that. Can one create two types of cottage food at the same home and sell those? Yes, you can have more than one cottage food selling from your home as the cottage food operator. Does that answer your question on Love's Home? If not, just put it in the chat box. All right. There are place or links we can help us for marketing plan steps. Yes. We can get with Andy to get a list of all the participants, and Delicia can send that to you as well as the slides. And Anne says, are there different rules about nonprofits? If I bake bread and sell it to benefit a charity, do I have to follow the labeling? So there are two categories for food, selling food, making and selling food. It's either made in a commercial kitchen or in your home. So if it's made in a commercial kitchen, you have to have a food permit, regardless if you're a nonprofit. The only people who are exempt from that are churches. Otherwise, if it's approved cottage food, it falls under the cottage food law, which is not regulated. Does that help, Anne? So if you're just a regular nonprofit, you would still fall under the same guidelines. Okay, you're welcome, Anne. Do we have any other questions? Any questions on marketing and business plans? Okay. So I hope you learned a lot today. I hope you want to start your cottage food business. If you want to learn more, like I stated, we have a webinar, which is a brief overview of the law, the business and marketing plan, food safety and quality. We have a lot more to offer because we're thinking this as your food business and how do you keep it going? How do you get it started? What do you need to consider? Because we want you all to be successful. So how can we something prices on the product? Are you asking how do you determine the prices on the product? That's something we actually discuss in the class. We have our food safety, well, not food safety, a regional specialist, and he helps everyone sell their products and price their products. So he has a whole spreadsheet and everything to help you with doing that. I hope that answers your question. I think that's Santa Maria. Yes, Rosa. So we have another question from Lee. When is your next full course and can people from outside the country listed participate? So since we're not really doing face-to-face right now, we have not set a date for that. Usually we have the full course maybe 2 to 3 times a year. I actually do this program along with my colleagues in Nassau County, Bradford County, Clay County, and I feel like I'm missing one and I can't think right now. But we do this collaboratively and we usually rotate from county to county. So I don't have a date, but if you send me your information as soon as we do, I can give that to you. And from outside the counties, of course, yes, they can participate. So did Leah and Rosa get your question answered? Okay, you're welcome. All right, so I think we have a 1 minute to spare. I'll turn the floor back over to you, Rachel and Andy. Thank you so much for having Delicia and I a part of your symposium.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you both so much, Natasha and Delicia. That was great, very informative.
You're welcome.
So for folks who have been hanging with us for the last couple days, you're familiar